Man, we're working on some technical difficulties. Thank you, guys. It's your man back in the saddle, back in the house, the one, the only, Coach Tony. Back on here, season 1. We took a little hiatus, but we're back at you. Episode 112. We're rocking and rolling. Got another solid guest tonight. You know me, I keep it coming. But this guest here going to surprise you. Because we're going to talk tonight about how his B game became his A game, even though we doing what we got to do. But before we talk about that, Val, you know what to do. Drop it. Man, back with the Pull Up Podcast Show is your main man, Coach Tony. Make sure you like us, subscribe to the show. More importantly, you share. Tonight, coming from Flint, Michigan, even though I don't get down with Michigan like that, but, I like some of them homeboys that I got over there. Coming from Flint, Michigan, by way of DePaul University. This guy was a 4th-round draft pick. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Played 13 years in the league overseas. We're going to talk about that. But more importantly, he made his B game, being a personal professional chef, his A game. So let's bring out my boy. And I'm going to keep this a secret. We're going to bring this out later. But before I tell you the last little secret, let's bring out my guy, the one and only, Mr. Marty Embry.
In the house.
What's up, baby? Hey, I'm going to have to see you a couple times. And that was a good intro right there. Good intro, man. How you doing, brother?
Good. I'm good, man. Glad to be on the show, man.
Man, hey, I think we back. I think we back in the mid-'80s up on Lincoln Avenue again, man.
I know, right? Hey, man, that's good old days. I miss being there.
I know, man. Hey, man, once again, man, I appreciate you, man, for taking time out of your business. I know you have a busy schedule, and coming on, we got a brand new show. I launched this a while ago, Marty, man. It's one of the fastest up-and-coming sports shows is going, man. We're doing a great thing, putting a lot of guests on, talking about some stuff that the people need to hear. And I just appreciate you being a part of the show tonight, my man.
My pleasure, man. I really appreciate the invite, too.
Oh, yeah. So let's jump in this real quick. Let's tell the people, man, a little bit about your background. You're a Pine Bluff kid, originally, but grew up in Flint, Michigan, man. Take us down that path a little bit in your background.
Okay, so Pine Bluff is where I was born. My parents moved to Flint because of GM back when I was 2-3 years old. So technically, I was raised in Flint. I was born in Pine Bluff, but I have a lot of family in Chicago, and that's pretty much why I chose DePaul, was because I have so much family in Chicago. So my roots run deep, man, from Arkansas to Michigan to Chicago.
Oh yeah, that's so you come up out of Flint now. Now let's don't get it wrong. Flint has some boys too. I remember, we talking about them Grant boys, Romeo Robinson, some of the guys, Gary Grant, Antoine Jobert, and all that. So as you making that move and you coming up in high school, what high school did you go to in Michigan?
I went to Flint Central. So at Flint Central, of course, I don't know if you're familiar with a guy that went to DePaul as well. His name was Terrence Green.
Come on, I know TG. Yeah, I know TG.
Yeah, so we went to the same high school. His team, he won, I believe, 1 state championship. I won 2. And the only guy that we had to win 3 was a guy named Daryl Johnson, and he ended up going to Michigan State. So Flint Central was really a powerhouse during the early 80s.
Oh wow, yeah, that's amazing. So you got some Long boys too. Grant Long and them boys came through there. That's right. Yeah, I think
they weren't from Flint though. That's the thing. So they were from the surrounding area like Detroit and Lansing, and so they played at some other cities. But between 81 and 91 maybe. Everything ran through Flint. You had my high school that won 3 state championships. Then the team with Glenn Rice and Jeff Greer, they won 3 championships. And then after that, Mateen Cleaves, they won 2. So we ran
about Mateen Cleaves, because
basketball.
Yeah, and Mateen Cleaves, matter of fact, ended up being the last Big Ten team with Michigan State to win in 2000. I know that because I was in Indianapolis. I saw that game, and that was great. And Izzo was the man. He was actually just getting started clicking at that time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but you see that common theme though with the basketball players and their mentality. So we had a certain type of mentality that was in Flint. I think it was kind of reminiscent of Chicago, but we were just on a smaller scale. We're a city of 150, 175,000 people. So when you look at that, man, we were loaded.
Oh yeah, that's definitely considered loaded, especially when you got Schoolcraft, St. Vincent, and all them in your back door in the D, Country Day and all them, and they were producing people, and you guys are doing something. So as you got an opportunity, as you say, you got the family in Chicago, coming out of D, and I'm sure you tossed it up at this time, and it probably was a difficult decision, Michigan, because you knew what they were producing at that time, and then DePaul. So what happened as you made the decision to go to DePaul over Michigan? Well, besides being because Joey Meyer was the coach at that time.
No, it was Ray Meyer. So I played 2 years for Coach Ray.
That's right. Ray was still there before Joey took over.
Yeah. Yes. So what happened was I was the guy on the team that wasn't projected to even go to college.
Oh, wow.
This was during my sophomore season. So what I didn't know, because I hadn't played organized basketball since elementary school, I refused to play in junior high school. So what I didn't know is that the head coach, which was Mr. Gooch, they saw me in practice trying out for JVs. And I noticed that he was in every practice, but I didn't know why. I mean, I'm just trying to make the team. Well, later on, I was told that the plan was always to have me on varsity, but they wanted me to get some playing experience on JV. So for 10 games, I stayed on JV. Then they moved me up to varsity. I didn't play very much. But the plan was always for the following year. So it was a thing where I think because in my mind, I never expected to go to college to play basketball. Well, my junior year, everything changed because we had Eric Turner. Eric Turner was All-American, one of the most heralded basketball players in the country at the time. So all eyes were again on him from Central. So that year we went 28-0, everything changed. So I went from not being recruited. Well, I went from not being a college prospect to not being recruited to being recruited and then to being recruited heavily. So I was recruited by most of the top 20 schools, but in my mind, I still wasn't that guy. I wasn't that basketball material. So my choices was Bradley, Oklahoma, DePaul, Michigan State, and then Michigan.
Wow. And then the funny part, buddy, you throw a school in there that's off the beaten path, and a lot of people don't know at that time, you're talking about Bradley. He had one another Chicago cat, Hershey Hawk, down in Bradley coming through. Yeah. And him and Jimmy Les, they were down there at that time.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was Bradley did something illegal that I didn't know about. My dad wasn't really in the household at the time. He and my mother are separated. So Bradley flew my father and one of my friends down to the school for a visit on a private jet. And that weekend I was at Oklahoma. So when I found out it was Michigan State that told me about it, I'm like, wait, how do you guys know? Right. So I didn't believe it at first, but when I called the coach, he admitted, we did. I said, well, that's Bradley is out because they were my top choice. So Bradley was out, so I'm going to my next choice. But then they did the same thing. My mentality, don't try to bribe me, but they told me not to sign. We got a package for you. They're going to bring me this whole satchel full of money to come up. And I'm like, nope, can't do that one. So now we moved on to my last three choices. And Michigan State was probably ahead of Michigan. I really wanted to go to Michigan, but Michigan State was a little bit ahead because of Judd Heathcote. Well, I decided, okay, I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead, and it's going to be now between Michigan State and Michigan. Local guy, I'm going to stay home. DePaul was at the bottom. Well, Michigan offered me a partial scholarship, and what Frieder said to me was, well, we can give you a partial scholarship, and we can get you a job, and you can pay for the other part of the scholarship. I said, let me get this right. I'm being recruited by all of the top 20 schools with the exception of Indiana, and you want me to take a partial scholarship?
And pay for the rest.
And exactly. That's when I decided to go to Michigan, to go to DePaul, man. So DePaul was not my first choice, but my family being there made it a lot easier.
Man, that's incredible. And I'm hoping that you kids, picked up on some nuggets that he was talking about. Nowadays that, as Marty was just mentioning, there's a couple of violations there. You talking about flying a parent to doing this and that and trying to make this happen, trying to make that happen. It's so funny now, Marty, with the NIL deals and all that on the table, and everything is so loose. You and I talked about that the other day, and whatnot. It's incredible. Now you see yourself in a situation, you come to, of course, I'm always going to say the best city in the country, in the Chi, and Chicago's doing this thing. And now the good thing about it is three things I look at it. You don't have to worry about adapting to. Being a Michigan boy, you already knew what the weather was like, so you was good with that. So it wasn't like you got to know what that hawk going to be when it be on your back.
Exactly.
The second thing was that you understand you now coming to a sports town, and you coming to the town at the time that Michael Jordan is just now changing the Bulls. The Bulls are just now starting to click at that particular point where Mike is in his second, third year with the Bulls, and we're still getting thumped by your Pistons, but they coming. And then the third thing is you coming to a historical college in DePaul, which is coming off the backs of my guy who was on our show, none other than Terry T.C. Cummins with Mark Aguirre, my boy Skip Money Diller, Kenny Patterson, and all those. And I'm like, whoa, now you end up at DePaul, and you guys end up having a hell of a team yourself. Tell the people some of the guys that was on that squad with you.
Okay, the ones that stick out are going to be always Dallas Comegys, Ross Strickland, and Tyrone Corbin.
Yes.
But we had a group of helter-skelter type guys that we didn't know that we probably were not as talented as the other DePaul teams. That's the teams with Mark Aguirre and the teams with Terry. Look at that big guy, but what we did, we played extremely physical from start to finish. Yep. So, and I'll tell you, man, I got a lot of pleasure out of playing against the bigs. Like, one of my favorite guys to play against was Pat Ewing. And I think for me, I played better. And that's not necessarily scoring or out rebounding, but I played with more intensity when I played against the bigger guys. So to hear Pat Ewing complain to the referee all game, he's pushing. Pat, you 7 foot, and one referee, as a matter of fact, said, "Stop crying, you big baby."
Right.
So
7
they
foot 4, 250 pounds. What are you talking about?
So they made us up our game, but we had the players there that just didn't know how to take no for an answer. We just refused to stop. And I'm talking about, even though we were down, like in one of the Georgetown games, we were down by, I think, 15 and a half. And we came back, we beat them, and that's because we just didn't have that quit in us. We didn't know how to quit. So I think that mentality was a Flint mentality for me. And I just never knew, because you got to think, when I was in high school, I only lost 2 games, 3 games. I lost 3 games in high school, and it was by less than 5 points total. So I wasn't accustomed to losing games. And when we got to DePaul, it was a struggle. The first year, we still won quite a few games, but it was a little struggle. But that second year, we were rolling. I think we lost 3 or 4 games the second season. We should have.
Yeah, y'all was rolling. And I think the unsung guy on that team at that time, I think was Kevin Edwards.
No, Kevin came after the fact. I didn't play with Kevin during that time, so he came out. He came later. But when you look at the team that we had, again, you got Tony Jackson, who was All-American. You had Kevin Holmes, who had records.
I forgot about Holmes. Yeah, I forgot all about Holmes.
Records, in California. Then you got Tyrone Corbin, who was a first-round.
Doug T. Corbin ended up going to the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, we had ballers, but they were like unsung heroes. So it was a situation for us where we had nothing to lose and everything in the game. All we had to do was just go out and play. Yeah,
and you coming on the backs of Ray. Ray had that name. DePaul had that logo. The city was it. And I always tell the guys all the time, you got the 3 major D1s in the city, in DePaul, Loyola to the north, Chicago State to the south, and UIC to the west. And DePaul was that brand. It was that logo. And it was so funny because I'd never forget when Coach Myers passed, and Coach Molinaro was my guy. And he ended up moving on up the Northern and getting everything squared away, but he was my guy. And when Joey came in, it was a different ball game. But to see you guys take that Blue Demon brand, and they had the cold uniform, baby. I always loved the uniform with the red, white, and blue on the stripe up on the arm.
Yeah. You know what, I'll tell you what, Tony, when, during that time, and you talked about Michael Jordan when he came to Chicago, he changed the climate of basketball with the Bulls. But prior to that, the Bulls fans were DePaul fans. So we
they were.
We averaged, I believe, 15,000. During my time at DePaul. Now you'll be lucky to get 3,000 in Wintrust. So we were Chicago's team, and that's how we were, heralded as Chicago's team. So when Michael Jordan came, we would go to the games. They'd give us tickets to come to the game. We probably signed more autographs than the Bulls did during that time. That's how big we were.
I'm telling you, Rosemont Rise was rocking. It was rocking.
Yeah. on a bad game, when we had a team that was just sucked, we still had 12,000 strong.
Yeah, that's
how good we were. Yeah.
That's insane. We sitting here talking to my guy, DePaul's finest, Mr. Marty Embry. You with the one and only Coach Tony sitting here on the Pull Up Podcast show. We're going to take a break in the first quarter. We're going to pay some bills with Val. We'll be right back to the Pull Up Podcast show.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the Pull Up Podcast. Show. I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, it's the Pull Up Podcast. Show. It's the Pull Up Podcast.
Are you a small business owner looking to grow? Introducing the KeySpot mobile app. I'm Cynthia McAllister, owner of the IT company Quality SAP. Since 2016, we have been supporting small businesses and help them promote and share their businesses, services, and events across the country. KeySpot is more than just an app. We are a network providing community. KeySpot, connecting communities and supporting small businesses.
Man, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast show with the one and only Coach Tony. Sitting here, make sure you like, subscribe, and more importantly, share this with your friends for the show. We're sitting here with my guy, Mr. Marty Embry, DePaul University. Just checking in here. We got my guy, Kevin Springer. Appreciate the night, man. Thanks for checking in. And I got my guy, Marty, one of your guys down from Dallas, Texas. My boy, Mr. Derek Reed said, man, he played football for Michigan State. He said, boy, Marty, I wish you'd have stayed home. We'd have loved to have you at Michigan State at the time.
That's great, man. That's awesome. What up, Kevin?
Man, I tell you what, man, it's so crazy, and let's look at DePaul because, what amazes me is you take the chance to get to DePaul. And now this is on the back of the Terry and Mark. Those guys had a tough loss against Never Nervous, Purvis Ellison, and all them boys prior to. Then you guys fight back. I think you guys ended up making it back in the 1986 tournament, kind of which put you on. Talk a little bit about how that was.
DePaul has that monkey on their back forever getting past that first round.
Yep.
And once we made it past the first round, again, with Coach Ray going out because he was retiring, that year we should have made it to, at the bare minimum, the Final Four.
Yep.
When we lost, we shouldn't have lost the game. I believe it was against, I want to say Wake Forest. But if you ever watch the replay of that game, one pass towards the end of the game basically turned the momentum for Wake Forest. So I think we finally got the monkey off our backs and we played well, but we just never could quite put everything together to get us into the Final Four. We had Final Four players. We had finals players. and we have a Final Four team, we have Final Four coaching, but something just always seems to have locked up when we got to the tournament. Just going past the first round, I think a lot of people, they were satisfied. Well, you went past the first round. No,
Right.
that's not quite how it works out. I don't
Correct.
go
That ain't
past
how
the
it
first
works.
round. I want to go all the way to the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the ball player coming out. We don't want to lose, but more importantly, we don't want to lose early. Period. Whether it's first or second round, I want to go all the way, past the Sweet 16. I want to get to the Final Four at the bare minimum, and we just never could pull it together to get us to the Final Four. And that's been a knock on DePaul, for years.
Right. And that Wake Forest team was tough because you sit there at Wake Forest, you had I think that you had Kenny Anderson on the guard side with he and Rod in that 86, 87. Rod was there, and Strick was tough. Man, you guys, from what you guys had, man, in terms of the big three with you, Kamaji, Strick, and all that, I thought, man, for sure you guys going to really come in to that NCAA tournament and really turn it up. Because it was like you said, it was almost like not even an opportunity to lose, because when you guys got past that first round, we're like, okay, now we got the monkey out the back, rocking and rolling. And it's amazing what you say. I just told my guys this the other day. We just got back from South Carolina. We made it to the championship game the other night. And we get to the game down 56 seconds, Marty, 56 seconds. And one of my kids, post player, never shoots a three in his life, come down and pull a 22-footer, try to be a hero. Now, I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate the jumper, but you haven't been a hero all day. And that one instance, just that one mistake, changed the outcome of the actual game. Then we missed a couple layups here and there. Yeah. So when you, like you said, you got that one situation, and when you in a NCAA tournament and it's win or go home, talk to us a little bit about how that feels.
Mm-hmm. That was it was all part of the game. We knew going into the NCAAs, we knew, okay, we lose, we're going home. So we tired, but ain't ready to go home, So we gave it our everything. It wasn't like it was any more additional stress or anything like that, because again, when every one of our games was on TV, so being on TV was not a factor for us. We had WGN at the time. So, other guys that came in, when they saw the cameras, lights, and all that stuff, cameras following them around everywhere. Okay, now they're a little intimidated. And then not to mention, when we go to play at these huge coliseums and they got, 15, 20,000 people, cheering for the other team, it didn't faze us because we played in front of 15,000 as an average. So having them scream at us, that didn't
out, right.
Yeah, it was business as usual for us. So I don't think it mattered, would it be in the NCAAs at all. We just couldn't put it together when we needed to put it together to pull out. Somebody always tried to do something extra when they didn't have to. Right. And I think it's the extra stuff that kind of cost us, in the long run. When Strick came in, he was a freshman my senior year. When he came in, this is how good he was. Before practice starts, we have open gym. So me and the other guys, me, Lamone Lampley, Tony Jackson, Kevin Holmes, we're sitting on the side with the seniors. Yeah. So we're sitting on the side, and we're looking at the young fellas, that DePaul had, and we saw Rod, and Rod did his thing, and all of us are around the same time said, he ain't gonna be here 4 years. The guy was NBA ready his freshman year. He just was a little on the lazy side. But as far as his ball handling, his shot, his passing abilities, his defense, and when you look at him, you're like, man, dude, we're all soaked in sweat. He had a little patch of sweat that was just right at his neck, just a little bit of sweat. I'm like, dude, you don't even sweat. So you would think that he was lazy, but it's not that he was lazy during the game. He was a little lazy during practice. But again, we recognize that this dude, when the lights come on, he's going for it. And he was just he was an awesome player, man. I mean, that dude was really good.
Yeah. Rob was on another level. I got a question from my guy, Kevin Springer. Kevin says, Marty, when you're looking at your career and back in the guys that you had an opportunity to play, who was one of the toughest defenders that you had to face night in and night out, or even day in and day out at practice?
So is this college or is this?
In college, when you was at DePaul.
God, in college, that's a toughie, man, because we had some good bigs. Lamone came along later. So he kind of grew. His freshman and sophomore year, he was really thin, so he was taken advantage of quite often. Kevin Holmes was a beast, but we played in different positions. My freshman year, I had to go against Walter Downing and Brett Burkholder. And Walter was another guy, man. He was to this day, he's one of my best friends. But in practice,
Providence St. Bill.
That guy was a beast. But I'm playing against Brett Burkholder, and he was a 6'11" guy, and he weighed every bit of 270, 280. But then I'm a freshman now. Here's the thing that nobody knows: when I came in as a freshman, I was 225, 230.
Right.
But by the end of my freshman year, I weighed 270. And then you would think, wasn't no steroids. I had a trainer, Mike McCormick. Mike came in and he asked me.
I remember Mike McCormick.
Mike was a good guy. He's really good at what he does. But he asked me, he said, we had a little meeting. He said, so what do you want to get from DePaul before you leave here as far as your body? I said, I want to be the strongest guy to step foot on this campus. He said, done. So he pushed me more than anybody ever pushed me in the weight room during the 4 years. So I went from being the weakest guy on the team, because I could barely bench press 200 when I got there. But by the time I left out of DePaul, I was bench pressing I was warming up with 315. So I was bench pressing well over 400 pounds. That was Mike McCormick. So in practice, the guys, nobody was as strong as me. So it's not like I had a lot of guys that could push me off the block or do anything like that. Dallas Comegys was a challenge to play against, though, because the guys' arms were ridiculously long. So if I had to pick a guy, I would have to go with Dallas, playing against him for those 3 years, I think it was. That was something that was he was my toughest guy. I would have to say Dallas.
And he was a lefty. And then at that time during the year, who was probably the toughest opponent that you guys faced that you struggled with?
We had a lot of guys. We had a lot of teams that we played against that were good. So I can't really pick out one. The one team that brought out the best in us was always Georgetown. Because it was going to be a nationally televised game. Their players were just as good as ours. They probably had players that were more athletic from top to bottom than we had at DePaul. But that game we brought out the best in them, and they brought out the best in us. So I'm gonna have to go with Georgetown. I particularly enjoyed playing against Pat. A lot of people, because he was Pat Ewing, they kind of shied away from playing against him. He and David Robinson probably were my two favorite guys to play against when I was in college.
Wow. And I'm gonna have you laughing. I'm gonna have you really laughing. So yesterday, I'm talking to Paul Biancardi. We had an opportunity, thumbs up, to go down to On the Rock with my guy Kevin Snyder. Should be looking at the show tonight with big shots. And congratulations to my 17U team, went to the championship, and we only lost by 1 point, Marty, 52-51. Then I found out after I left that my 17U guys actually lost to a prep school, and the guys were 22 and 23 years old. So I felt real good. And the funny thing about what you just said, Paul and I were talking, and we just got to reminiscing about the old days. And I said, man, who was one of the toughest programs that while you were coaching in the Big East you had to face? He said, man, it was none other than John Thompson in Georgetown. He said, because he said, he had me laugh. He said, I used to tell my guys this. You got to beat them off the block, and then you got to beat them down the court. If you get down by 2 could be 12, and 12 is the end of the game. And if you get down by that much, it's a wrap. He said, all I told my guys, if you get a rebound, you must hold it because Patrick's going to give you a bow. You know, we got Morning down there. Got Zoe doing his thing. You know, you got the Matumbo coming down the road. So Big John knew how to get them boys. You got Allen Iverson giving you some. You got Gray giving you some. They were coming at you every single play. And he said that, you know, it was one of the best times he ever coached college ball to sit there and be able to play Georgetown year in and year out.
Yep, I agree.
So
I agree wholeheartedly.
That's amazing. That's crazy. We talking to my guy, Mr. Marty Embry here from DePaul University, sitting here on the Pull Up Podcast Show with your guy, the one and only Coach Tony. We're going to take a halftime break. Val, let's pay some bills. We'll be back for the third quarter. Hold tight.
I've always thought about how my mom has supported me in any creative endeavor. How beautiful was it for your mom to be the superhero in your life and show up in your creative ventures with this book?
People ask her to sign the book more than they ask me to sign the book. Sometimes I step to the side, I take their picture. And, you know, we have to celebrate our mothers. We got to celebrate our beginning.
There you go.
So she comes out with me. Every event, she is there. Even when I tell her she does not need to come, she will show up in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh, okay, you coming? Okay. I'm like, all right.
And she got a bottle of wine in her hand.
What in the world? Why are you giving her alcohol?
No, I'm just saying. She showed up in the parking lot. She got a bottle of wine, nice wine. She's going to set it down. She ready for the show, Val. You know what I'm saying? Because the funny part about it is, CJ, I've actually talked to Val. I thought about, you know, writing a book myself called My Man's in Them. But,
I love it.
You know, and look at Val.
My man's in them.
My man's in them. But you got to read the book. You got to read the book. But it's a play. CJ, I apologize because Val should have dropped some old Dub C so you could have came out crip walking. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not flamed up right now. I got to hold on. Trying to get me shot.
Going back to school tomorrow, like, I saw you, Miss Charles. I saw you.
I mean, I can crip walk, so please, you know, but I'm kind of, you know, I'm authoring right now. You guys are funny.
Man, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast Show. It's your guy, the one and only Coach Tony, sitting here with my guy, Mr. Marty Embry. Man, so let's get back in this, Marty. So we're coming up out of that. And let me tell you a little secret here. You know, I don't have to tell you because it's Kim folks, but what some of these people don't realize, your name come from a long line of good history NBA guys. Because I think it's your Uncle Wayne played with the Boston Celtics back in the day, I think with Russell, right? And won some rings.
Yeah. Wayne he's a distant relative. He from everything that I found, he's a cousin. I've only met and talked to him maybe twice.
Oh,
and,
wow.
His daughter reached out to me. Yeah, his daughter reached out to me when I was at DePaul, but we never got together to sit and chit chat. Wayne was a tough guy to get to. And when I met him the first time, we were playing Marquette, and he was doing something. I don't remember what he was doing. I don't know if he was with, you know, the NBA team there or the Bucks, or I'm not sure. Walking across the street, I was with Doc Rivers, and Doc said, "There's Wayne right there." So I asked him, I said, "Wayne, my last name is Embry. Do you have any family in Arkansas?" He said, "No, I don't." And he kept walking. I was like, "Ooh, okay, we're good." So years later, I did find out that we had wherever his relatives were from. I have relatives in it, you know, that was from the same area. And then when we did the DNA thing, his name popped up. So we're related. I just don't know where the lineage started. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of your boy, you just mentioned Doc Rivers. Have you seen the trailer on the new movie that's supposed to be popping out? Oh my God, you got to go ahead. So you remember the Clippers owner? They let him go because he was prejudiced and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So now they got a movie, none other than your boy Lawrence Fishburne playing, of all people, Doc Rivers.
Wow, that's a good match, though. That's a good
Yeah, it's a
match.
good match.
Yeah.
And he bringing it too. So you got to check it out, Marty. It's supposed to be dropping. I want to say sometime in early June, man. So I can't wait. I think it's either Netflix or Hulu, but I can't wait to check it out. That's going to be something, and
Okay.
that's going to be
Some
interesting.
people check it out. Yeah.
Speaking of checking out, man, you got to be proud of your son, Javon, man. He ended up going on and being an SEC boy. I remember when he was playing, because the SEC tournament is here in Nashville all the time. You know, been at Bridgestone for the last decade, give or take, and they bounce it back and forth, but the majority of the time is here. Where's he? He's playing professionally right now. He's overseas.
No. You know what? He never did. He never did put it together, and I think he had a lot of interest. He wanted to play, but Javon is a big guy. He's a big dude. He's like 6'11", and he weighs every bit of 4 and some change. But you would think that he's just this big, sloppy. No, he's not. He's just a big guy. But he's actually transitioning into professional wrestling. So he lives in Vegas now, and he goes to those professional wrestling schools, and he's doing that, working with some professional wrestlers. So he's coming back here to do a show next week, and then he's doing 2 shows in Virginia. So they got him going around doing the shows now, and his nickname, that they call him Big Unit.
Big Unit.
Yeah, this dude, man, he's like a wall. He's just like a cement wall. And we used to work out together, and Tony, the funniest story is that I was working out with him once, and I hurt my shoulder, and he didn't know it. Well, it turned out that I ripped my shoulder apart when I ran into him. And to this day, I've never told him that. I'm hoping that he doesn't see the show. I told him about it. I'm hoping he doesn't. But yeah,
you should have told him that you need him setting a couple of picks back in the day.
Ooh, man, dude, I've seen people just bounce off that dude, man. Yeah, he's a big guy, but I think he was better suited for football, but he didn't want to play football because he always carried the additional weight. But when you're talking about just naturally strong, man, that dude is a wall. He's a walking wall.
Right. That is incredible. And speaking of transition, so you get out DePaul, you get an opportunity to get picked up 4th round by the Jazz, and then you end up having a successful career overseas. I get a lot of my guys always talk about that. We were just talking about the draft and all that. My son's good friend is the number 2 draft pick this past season, and Brandon Miller, which I told everybody he's going to be Rookie of the Year, and he's coming. He's going to do some big things in the NBA. And I keep telling guys, and they better stay focused. But as you made that transition and all of a sudden end up in FIBA playing over in Europe, how was that? How was that transition as opposed to being in the league?
Well, for me, the transition was seamless because I made my mind up before I went overseas that I was going overseas. So a lot of other people may have struggled with, trying to find employment overseas, but I wasn't that guy. So what happened was my senior year, I was told that I was going to be drafted by Utah, and I knew that because one of my friends was Kathy Sloan. She went to DePaul, she transferred, but we stayed in touch. She called me and told me, my dad is going to draft you. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm serious. My dad loves you. He said he loves you play like the old school guys, with grit. He loves you. Yeah, whatever. I ended up getting drafted by Utah. Well, when I went to camp, they had Jose Ortez that they hadn't signed yet, but they had Eric Lechner.
For people that don't know, Kathy Sloan is Jerry Sloan's daughter, the Utah Jazz coach.
Exactly, yeah. So now my game plan is to embarrass Eric while I was there. If I embarrass Eric, I got a good chance of making the team. I'm serious. Right. That was my goal. So, and that happened. I embarrassed Eric every single day. So much that Jerry Sloan just snapped on him. He just went off on him one day. Embry's kicking So, but then I found out that they were signing Jose, and I was like, okay, so let me ask Jerry. We're gonna be honest here. I asked Jerry. He said, yeah, we're trying to sign Jose, but we want to bring you back in a veterans camp. I said, for what? I said, I'm playing against veterans now. I said, why am I coming back to camp? There's no position. Well, we'll make Frank Layden. We'll make a spot for you if you if you're impressive. Yeah, but I impressed you here. You didn't make a spot for me. So
Wow.
I opted to go overseas. And so when I went overseas, I said I'll come back. I'll come back the following year, maybe. I chose not to go back to Utah again. So I jumped ahead actually. So the first year I went to Europe, then I came back to Utah. And when they did that to me, I gave up a contract. I gave up a nice contract to go to camp. And I got screwed. I ended up getting more money overseas that year, but the point was I gave up a whole contract. So when that happened, I made up my mind. I said, okay, I'm not doing this again. So Utah, this is a story nobody knows. Utah held my rights for 5 years. They never did release me. They never did put me on waivers. They held my right. Every year they said, well, we want to bring you back into camp. I said, can you give me the money that I'm signing for overseas? Because I'll give up that contract, but you got to pay me in full. Well, we can give you a per diem. Nope, I'm good. See you later. So I left. So I stayed overseas. And it's not that I couldn't play in the NBA. I really think that anybody else that would have had my rights, I probably would have made the NBA. But because it was Utah and I didn't want to go back to Utah, I just said I'm good with where I'm at. And I stayed in Europe and made a career out of it.
Oh yeah, man, that's incredible. And talking to some of the young guys and some of the parents that's on the show listening tonight, when they've got a kid that's at that decision, because right now the NIL, as you and I were talking the other day, is now running college basketball. Whether good or bad, I'm glad that the young brothers and sisters are starting to get it. I'm glad that Caitlin Clark has now changed the face of what women basketball is possibly going to be. But when you're looking at all that from where you stood and being in that position, what is some nuggets or some things that you can tell these young kids nowadays in this 24, 25 class that's possibly looking where they may be a mid to late second round draft pick, possibly may end up being overseas? What are some things you would give them as nuggets that they would need to at least watch out for?
Okay, so here's my take on that whole thing. The generational gap is obvious with me versus them because my mentality is completely different. But when you look at players, the swing now is the European game. The European game is invading the NBA. So now it's not enough just to have a big that's a space eater and that's strong and burly and it can take up a lot of space. Now he got to guard these guys that are 7 feet that can get up and down the floor. So
or shoot the three, and the only big guy that's taking up space right now is Joker. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think the young guys need to recognize a couple of things. One is because you may have to go overseas, you still got to respect the game. So just because you're an American going overseas, no, you're not going to be the best player. You may be the best player on that particular team, but I promise you won't be the best player in that league because you're going to be playing against guys that are 35 years old, 33 years old, 30 years old, that's been playing professional basketball since they were 15, 16 years old. So they got to change their mentality when they talk about going overseas. It's hard for a lot of guys from the States to go to Europe and not be that guy.
Right.
Because they've always been that guy in the States. The other thing is guys, for some reason, they stop working once they make it to a certain level. So, and I tell my guys all the time, I said, when you are a JV player, your goal is to play varsity. So you just made the JV team, but that's for this year. Now you're playing for next year. So now you plan to make the varsity. So now that you're on the varsity, okay, now you've made the varsity. Now you plan for a scholarship. So you can't just relax.
Correct.
You're playing for a scholarship. And it goes up the ladder like that. So now you're playing in college. The next goal is to go to the NBA. If you can't make it to the NBA, I promise you, somebody watching you from Europe, if you're on one of those kind of teams, I got calls because I played at DePaul. And the coach that I played for, he knew my coach. he knew some of the past players. He watched the games every chance he got, so he knew what he was getting. The guys got to recognize. They got to recognize that people are always going to have eyes on them. So you got to give 110% every time you step on the court. Period. That's
exactly right. Couldn't say it better. We played again yesterday, and one of the coaches came to me and said, "Hey, man, there's I don't want to say out loud, but there's undercover some college coach people's eyes." He didn't say the coaches were in there, but he said there's some college coaches people's eyes. In other words, I may have a good friend, and Marty may be in Chicago. I call and say, "Hey, Marty, I need you to go check out this game. Little Johnny's playing." People don't realize that just because the university is not there does not mean the university is not there.
Exactly.
It's kind of play on words. So you got to kind of look at it. So, hey, you are working right here with my guy, Mr. Marty Embry, and you got Coach Tony on the Pull Up Podcast Show. We're going to take the last break of the day, let Val pay some bills. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about getting into some food back on the Pull Up Podcast Show. Back to the fourth quarter of the Pull Up Podcast Show with the one and only Coach Tony. Got my special guest right here to my side, my main man, Mr. Marty Embry. Now, tell me, I talk about with my guys sometime, Marty, that, you're in school, you're playing ball, you're doing the things you got to do. Do you have that plan B? Where did the food/chef come from? Was it when you were a kid, mom, grandma, somebody was, that really put you up on? Because I know you love to eat. I know that. But how did that, I want to be instead of going into music or in the movie industry or a bodyguard or doing some other thing, how did the food come about?
Okay, so I've always cooked. When everybody else was outside playing, my mother and father both were pretty good cooks. I was in the kitchen with them when they were cooking. My mother would cook some days, my father would cook some days. So it was just a natural progression for me to cook. Sports was secondary to me. I wasn't a sports fanatic. As it progressed, when I got to DePaul, for the first year, we had to cook our own food. We didn't have a training table. So we they gave us like a little weekly per diem for us to go out and buy our own food. And I would go there, the good smelling food was coming from my room, so I've always cooked, period. So as it transitioned, I went through the whole thing in Europe. My wife came over, so she's a really good cook as well. But she was doing most of the cooking when I was overseas or when I was playing. One thing happened to me that made me change that whole thing because I had a really bad injury to my back. And my wife was working a full-time job, make me breakfast, go to work, come back home, make me lunch, go to work, come back home, make me dinner. And one day I said, when I was able to walk again, I said, well, I'm gonna make her this lunch this time when she come home. So it started back up from that point. And because I was always pretty good at it, I just kept doing it and then kept doing it. And then I opened up my first restaurant and then did it some more, opened up another restaurant, did it some more. So I've always known that cooking was my thing, but in between that, I was a director of athletics for the city of Flint. So, I parlayed that scholarship into a degree and worked for a school system for almost 10 years and got out of the school system because of the injury, and then started doing my own thing on the side where I produce my own spices and sauces and things like that. As of right now, I'm personal chef. I go around the country doing, I cook for people. You call me to come in and cook for you and your family for a week, I'm coming to you for a week. I parlayed that into, it was a hobby that is now a profession.
Wow, that's amazing. And the restaurant's called 51 to go. And for a lot of you guys don't know that 51 was that jersey number. So exactly. and that's awesome. So what's your specialty?
And I get that question asked all the time. I don't really have a specialty. So I'm gonna paint a picture for you and Val, okay?
Okay.
So imagine me growing up on Southern food.
Right.
So then
and I got that family from Alabama, so I ain't even got to imagine. I already got that.
Okay. Now imagine me going to play for 6 years for Italian teams.
Right.
All of my off days, I'm in somebody's restaurant in their kitchen with the chefs so they can show me how to do their authentic food. Then imagine that same thing in Belgium. Imagine it in Turkey. So every country I played in, I learned how to cook their authentic food. So now we got a fusion where I'm doing Southern with the fusion of European. So what I do really is a Southern European fusion, if that makes sense.
Okay. That's nice.
I try to add flares of other countries into our Southern food, and I'm not changing the whole flavor profile, but I'm adding something a little different. So if I make you some, you're not going to go to the other restaurant down the road and get the same thing. It's just
because we got a little flair to my girl Bella. Okay. What's up, Bella? Thanks for checking in. What's going on with you? Hey, you got to ask my guest Marty something. Tell me what you want him to cook for you, and we're gonna figure that out. It's funny because I call myself the grill master, man. I get on the grill, and like my boy Martin said, I gets it done. So I get on the grill, Marty, and make it happen. And I'm looking at some of the stuff that you got. And I know you don't really have a specialty, and I like that because it kind of changes up based on what you're looking at. Well, what are some of the high-profile guests that you've actually had an opportunity to go maybe cook a dinner for the family or for them, or even be in a special place?
Well, the problem with that is that I signed a non-disclosure.
Oh, I got
you. Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons why I get the jobs I get from high-profile people.
Yes.
Because the first thing I say to them is that I signed a non-disclosure, so I never mention who they are, what I cook for them, or anything like that, and that I think they appreciate because they are celebrities.
Sure.
And I get my fair share of actors and actresses, and surprisingly, what I don't get a lot of is athletes. So for me, it's backwards because the way I get some of the actresses and actors is I'm friends with their friends, and I cook for them.
And you're an athlete.
Yeah. So, but when you look at athletes now, if you came to me as an athlete and said, Marty, I got 25 games over the next X amount of months. I need to have something that's going to fuel me, that's going to do this, that's going to help me out. I can't gain any weight. I can lay that whole thing out because I've been there, done that. So I know what they're supposed to eat before a game. I know what they should have after a game. I know what they should have during preseason, all of that stuff. And I'm just not getting, and as many NBA players as I know from the past and even now, I still haven't gotten a chance to cook for an NBA player or NFL player during the season. Off season is fine, but I want to do something like that during the season. So yeah, I do the non-disclosure.
Do you think it's because of the busyness in the schedule?
No, I think what it is, the NBA players, they know I cook, but I almost think that either they don't want to pay the money that I charge. The actors and the actresses don't have. I give them a price and I produce, and they call me back, and they don't have a problem with it. The NBA players make the money, but they don't. Matter of fact, Terry Cummins invited me to his wedding. He wanted me to cook bake his cake. I'm not a cake guy. I make cakes, but I can't do a wedding cake. So I'm going to go back and do a 3-month or 6-month anniversary dinner for, he and his family.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of good sense there.
Yeah, but Terry's a unique guy, though. Terry's been watching out for me since college, man.
T in this picture right here. So where y'all click this picture at?
That was at DePaul. Terry he's doing a documentary, and he asked some of us to come in. He's crazy too, but he asked some of us to come in and do an interview. And when Terry calls, I go.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I missed his wedding. I hate that I missed his wedding, but I was laid up with migraines 6 days out of a week, man. So I couldn't make it to his wedding. But he's truly had my back. I'm going to take it back to high school. When I went to visit DePaul, he told me he was going hardship. He said he was 99% sure he was going hardship. Whether he left or not, I still would have gone to DePaul because I like that guy.
Yeah, that's my guy, man. And I'm waiting for him to get back on the show. It's one of our big shows that I had. And I don't know if you know or not, he produced a new album.
Yeah.
Got new gospel. Yeah, so he supposed to be, hey, T, I hope you listening tonight, because he supposed to be coming back on the show, breaking down the album he came out with and talk. We had a great visit with he and I and Val, and it was really awesome, man. I love it. And I tell you how small the world is too, Marty. I'm sitting out in Phoenix with my brother, and we sit out there kicking it one weekend right at the Final Four, matter of fact, and bounced into a barbershop, and it had like Chicago greatest barber. I'm like, in Phoenix? And so I bounced in, and me and my man get to talking, and I tell him who I am and what part of, I'm from Chicago, and then he and I get to going back and forth. And he said, yeah, man, my cousin, one of the biggest names, come out the city. I'm like, who? He said, Terry Cummings. Like, oh, man, that's my guy.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, so it was just funny to have that go back and forth, man. So T good people, man. So I was finally glad. When I say glad, I was absolutely glad to see DePaul finally retire that jersey, man.
Yeah. They should have done that a long time ago too.
Should have done it a long time ago. Yeah. And they finally get to it and make it happen. And it kills me sometimes because of the changes that we got to go to and to get to the other side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because that squad he had on, I'm talking about, when I say set the precedence, no one was trying to get out of the U of I. Nobody was trying to get nowhere. It was between DePaul and then Alfred Hughes, jumped up north. And if he'd have went to DePaul, it'd been a whole other ball game. We decided to go to Loyola, but and that ended up being something else too. But man, it was completely amazing. And let me get your thoughts right now. Then you're still in the game, you still listen to it, and I know your mind kind of changes a little bit because you're so busy. But what you think about these NBA playoffs, man? And I'm gonna tell you who I got. And I for promotional purposes only, I keep telling them, out the East to me is very easy. With Giannis being hurt, Indiana's doing what they're trying to do, but it's going to go through Boston. But to me, the series, it may even be the World Championship Series, is right now between Minnesota and Denver. Because that boy, man,
Edwards,
he the business. To me, they were talking about the NBA was going to get passed on to John Moran. We saw what happened with that. And then we trying to figure out who else. Right now, tonight, I'm sitting down getting the show together and I'm eating. And they had a comparison on TV tonight about Edwards and Jordan.
Yeah.
And he's right now tied Kobe and Lou Alcindor and I think Oscar Robertson, which is LeBron that did it, of being one of the only players under the age of 30 to have 3 straight 30 games, 8 assists and 5 boards in a playoff game.
Yeah. I'm going with them too, man. I like Edwards, and I think Morant lost his chance to own the league.
Yes.
Edwards gonna pick up he's gonna pick up where Ja left off at. So I like him, man. I think he's a good guy, and I think he's doing all of the right things, Yep. And you got Joker and some other guys, man, that are recognizable. But the stuff I saw Edwards do, man, this guy, he is a monster.
chased down the ball full court, block shot, then came right back and almost broke his wrist on the play, and then hit the game winner.
Yeah. That dog I talk about when
Yes.
you just don't know how to say no or you don't know how to quit. That's him.
Yeah.
He got it. He has that mentality.
Let me tell you something.
He's gonna own that league.
He got all of that Georgia Bulldog in his system.
Yeah.
I think he the best thing since I was out of the state of Georgia, probably since Dominique in terms of excitement.
Yeah.
The kid, and I told my boy Marty the other day we was talking, and tell me if you agree with this or not. I said, the way the league is changing, we're on the downside of LeBron, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what happened with Kobe, and he handed the baton over, and we are now on the downside of LeBron, give or take 1 or 2 years, and LeBron's gonna hang it up, whether LeBron is coming or not. Ja didn't get it, like you said, because of the screw-ups of what he was doing in his mental mindset.
Yeah.
And I know they're talking about mental illness, and he may have a little bit of it. And I'm hoping they're working to get the brother where he needs to be at. But in terms of where the league has to go, I'm telling you, between Anthony Edwards, my back, Brandon Miller is coming, Victor Wembanyama is going to be there, and Joker is only 30. People don't know that. Joker is doing all this, and he's only 30, and it's incredible. So when Edwards, and if Edwards can get Carl Anthony Towns and company to continue to play the way they're playing right now, let me tell you something. Minnesota may be looking at a ring real quick, Marty, because they went into Denver on game 1 and snatched their heart, and Denver didn't expect that.
You know what? For me, Edwards and Wemby, they're going to be the face of the NBA, I think. I think that guy Wemby, man, and I've liked him from day one when I saw him play a couple of years ago when they just had the little highlights of him. And I said, if he improves like I think he is, and then not have any 7'4" injuries, the injuries with when they ankles and knees and stuff, that guy, who's going to stop him? He's going to be unstoppable. I don't think anybody in the league is going to be able. The bigs can't guard him because he handles the ball like a guard, like a small forward.
And he stretches the defense with his 3-point capabilities.
Yeah. So I think he and Edwards, man, they can own that league for years if they just keep playing the way that they're playing and keep improving and winning some championships. Man, the sky's the limit.
And Edwards is so humble. The best thing I heard out of his mouth was when he dunked on Durant and said, "Yeah, I posterized him, and I'm gonna talk about him this summer and while we working out for the Olympics."
Right. That's a good one.
I'm gonna remind him all that. The wise choice checking in. What's up, brother Wise? Appreciate you on the mic tonight, man. With me, my guy Marty Embry, talking a little bit of basketball. Man, I appreciate it. You got to give me one thing for the people, though, before we get out of here. I need to know who's going to win the NBA championship from Mr. Embry's perspective.
God, that's a toughie, man.
I know, man. I got to put you on the spot. I have all my guests. I got to have it.
You know what? Denver, possibly. Yeah. I'm going there.
I like Denver. So you and me together, because before the season started, I told them you got to go through the champ to win it. And Joker is possibly looking at what, back to back MVP?
Yeah.
Which is outside of Jordan, ain't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
So, and he's doing it. But think about it when you played, Marty. How many times did you see, or even DePaul, how many times did you guys get the rebound and give it to Dallas Cumbergees or Holmes to bring the ball up? Probably none.
That's true.
And these boys are rebounding the basketball and giving the ball to a 7'3", 7'4", 280-pound center. And they can't even ripple. And he's bringing the ball. Yeah, exactly. And he's dropping dimes like magic.
Yeah. See, and that's what we talked about earlier. The bigs, the game that they're bringing from Europe over to the States. Now, bigs gotta come with some skills. They can't just be the big guys. Now, who's going to guard? What 7-footer is going to guard him? Bring the ball up the floor.
Correct.
Nobody.
And you can't put the average too big on it, because if you bring the big out too far, now you left the hole open.
Yeah,
now,
there you go.
I do like the way Minnesota played. The only reason I can say Minnesota played them so tough, because you got 2 7-footers, right? You got Karl Anthony Towns, who's a step away 3-point guy, but Rudy Gobert is the defensive player of the year. So now you got a guy that's down low that can defend the basket. So, okay, I can isolate Joker with that. And then I got another 7-footer that you can't block his shot. So he's stepping away shooting threes. So that's why I said Minnesota is the biggest threat. And then you got Anthony there. So that 3-headed monster is rolling. Game 2 is tonight. Jamal Murray's got to step up. He's got to play bigger than what he has. Michael Porter Jr., which is my guy. If Michael Porter Jr. can have a 15, 20-point game tonight and Joker does what he got to do, I think that the Nuggets win tonight. I'm going to call it 108-96 tonight.
Okay. I'm going to call you back with that and find out what, how close you were.
Yeah, let me know that. Hey, I appreciate you guys hanging in here tonight with my guy, Mr. Marty Paul Embry, and we're going to talk about 51 to go. If you guys need some food, you need to know about that, Marty. If they need to find you and want to understand how to get in touch with you, and maybe somebody may be having a engagement party with a new wife to be, or any kind of party, how can they find you?
I'm on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Marty Embry. You can find me on Instagram, Marty Embry 00. I got a TikTok that I set up with, that I kind of highlight the food that I cook. And that's it. I mean, I'm real accessible. My website is www.fromthecourttothe.kitchen. And I sell my spices and things like the aprons and caps and all that stuff on there, which I'm going to be coming out. I only have 2 spices that I sell typically, but I do special kind of stuff. I do a Reaper spice. I do Reaper sauce. I got 7 more spices that are going to be on the website probably within the next 6 months. So I'm all over the place, man. I'm going to end up moving to Dallas. So I'm going to reopen a restaurant up in Dallas, in the Dallas area. I'm not sure what region I'm going to be in yet, but it's going to be in the Dallas area. So that's going to be my new home pretty soon.
I'm going to give hey, my boy D. Reed said, when you get to Dallas, holler at me. That's that Michigan State for you, man. That's that Michigan State.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, I got to make sure at that time, I got to have one of these cookbooks, Marty, and I got to have some of these spices. Because, see, my spice is through the roof. When I eat sometime, man, I go get me a fresh jalapeno and chop it up and do the thing.
You will love my Reaper sauce, man.
Okay.
That stuff will burn your throat.
Okay, well, we're going to talk there, because I got my specialty on my ribs and my chicken wings and all that. So if I got your spices and what I'm doing, plus I can get a couple little tips from you, I'm going to be all right this summer.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, well, listen, I appreciate you stopping by the studios tonight. Hey, once again, we've been nice conversation with my guy, Mr. Marty Embry. Look him up on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, everything with Marty Embry. And I'm telling you, man, from the court, man, I love that whole phrase, man, from the court to the kitchen. So it's, in other words, what y'all didn't catch what he was saying, he cooking you on the court, but he's still going to cook you in the kitchen.
Pretty much. In a nutshell.
Right. And dropping assistance right there. So, hey, I appreciate it. Hey, man, I'm going to make sure that you get back out here as you make that move to the restaurant and all that, and do some things right here, by the way, too, Marty. If you got some people, this is my piece right here. This is the Rise NIL. This is where they have the opportunity for some of the young athletes where we brand companies and brand athletes, and we bring them together. So we make sure we hit that fuse. So if you want to make sure that you have an opportunity to talk to some brands, make sure you go to the Rise NIL at www.therizenil.com. And on Tuesday nights, in case you out cooking for somebody, Marty, Val and I, when we're done with the Pull Up Podcast show, on Tuesday nights, we bring Interludes Talk on Tuesday. Now,
Okay.
what that is a show that we get out of the sports pace and we get over to the entertainment, Marty. And
Okay.
tomorrow night, we got this young lady on tomorrow night talking about everything in the music industry with Michelle. It is going to be absolutely awesome with Val and myself. So tune in tomorrow on Interludes Talk on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central. Make sure you beat us there. Don't meet us there.
All right. Sounds good.
Man, hey, brother, I appreciate it, man. You definitely will be in touch. And once again, thank you guys for tuning in to the Pull Up Podcast Show with your guy, Coach Tony. We appreciate you, but you know my words. Peace.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. So, I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know.